Well on Pass. Total football.
Hey guys, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So for today's video,
we recorded a very special talk where we speak about mental health in football.
The views expressed in this video are our own.
But we still hope that this helps to get the message across that the battle for mental health is happening everywhere.
If you or anyone you know are facing challenges, please don't hesitate to seek professional help.
Please utilize the contact details in the description below and get in touch.
In the meantime, guys, do take care of yourself. Stay safe and chill.
Stay safe and take care, guys.
Stay safe and take care.
Stay safe, stay care.
Take care.
So guys, we're doing a podcast. Today's podcast is on mental health awareness among footballers, and like this podcast reflects purely our opinions on it, and we don't have any knowledge on this topic as such. This is just an opinion. None of these are facts, and these are just our thoughts. Wesley, what club do you support?
Barcelona.
Can you put your hand up so people know who you are?
I am Wesley.
Can you put your hand up, bro?
Yeah, I'm Leon.
One
second, quickly.
Evident.
This is perfect.
Yeah, so he's a Liverpool fan, obviously. So yeah, let's take it away. Guys, when you think of like mental health and how it affects football or footballers who have openly spoken about depression or anxiety, or do you have anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say something about mental health in relation to sports in general, right?
Yeah.
I think mental health in many sports is kind of a taboo because people don't want to talk about it. Yeah, it's something which people want to deal with by themselves. That's been the history over the past years because these players have the resources, they have the need. I mean, they have the money to have their own therapist to deal with their family and stuff like that. So it's very rare that you see people talking about depression, so like thoughts of suicidal and any of those things in football or in any other sports in general, right? But I think there's been a trend over the past few years where more people are coming out, as you all have seen. That we see Aaron Lennon coming out, and then we've had some, yes, and we have had instances of losing like good coaches like Gary Speed, and apparently even Danny Rose has has gone through depression. So we've seen that trend, that upward trend where people are coming out to talk more about mental health. And also many football associations around the world, they have a platform now so that players can reach out. Right? And what I've researched and heard over the past 2 months when the COVID-19 strike came in, right? Many football authorities, they actually reached out and they made a platform for players to inquire, to talk to professionals staying at home. So as for players, they have a routine. Like us, they have a routine of going to practice, having a match every weekend, playing that. But to break that routine, to go back to being stuck at home, it's a massive change for them as well. Because let's face it, many of these footballers, they stay by themselves in another city, right? They move to another city without their family. Some people don't have, some footballers don't have anyone with them. So that affects footballers who are more prone to depression, right? So from what I've seen, there's been an upward trend of more support and more people coming out towards mental health and also opening up to talk about it. So that's my perception of it, because I think it has paved the way. Next few years, so that I'm sure many people that may be surprised, who have mental issues as well. So yeah.
To add on to what Shamhan said, that there's been quite an upward trend in terms of players coming out, not even in terms of stress, depression, but even in terms of the sexuality and the sexuality preferences as well, because there's a bit more reception, or there's a more receptive society right now than how it used to be. The way I see it, there's and especially in sports or in business, especially when you get to stardom, when you hit stardom, you tend to get lonely at the top. It's definitely lonely. Like if you guys watch the documentary of Usain Bolt, like if you watch towards the end, towards when he was competing in the London Olympics, you could watch a scene where he's in his room alone and he's just like walking here and there, he's just singing. That I mean, for someone like us, whom we always surround ourselves with people whom we can always go out. I mean, people like us, we can lead a normal life, but sports stars, they can't, because there's a lot of immense expectation, and there's a lot of instant feedback. Like even if you take an exam, there's like a small amount of period and like a certain amount of audience who are reaching out for you. Even in business, like you can make some decisions and then there's only a limited amount of stakeholders who will be affected. But sports in general, not only football, but sports in general, like you're playing in front of 90,000 to 100,000 people, and if you make some mistake, like that will hit you. Like especially the instance where Loris Karius like made those two blunders in the Champions League final. That is still haunting, and people will not forget that. They will, no matter how many good saves he makes, people will always bring it up, and that will always be inside you. And like as I said, like there's an instant feedback mechanism in sports as general. Like if you do something wrong, that will haunt you for the rest of your life. And as you said, like Shaman said, like even Danny Rose openly said that in 2018 he was suffering with depression. And even Andres Iniesta, he openly said that he was suffering from depression before the 2010 World Cup because his friend passed away. And if you watch that World Cup in the final, after he scored the goal, he lifted his t-shirt up and he showed a name. So that was dedicated for his friend who passed away. And even like if you take there have been some extreme cases in terms of depression as well, as to like certain players committing suicide because they made certain blunders in certain games, and that has like really hit their lives and hit the way they lead their lives. Like for us to be very specific, Agostino Di Bartolome, he was a Roma player. So in 1994, he committed suicide. 10 years on the same day, on the exact day, 10 years before, when Liverpool beat them in the European Cup final on penalties. So, like we can see many cases like these where, like especially in sports, where people are like committing suicides, like early retirements, injuries, all of it. So yeah, I just want to head on to what Shama just said. Those are my thoughts on mental awareness.
Okay. So as we can see, or rather as we know, mental health affects pretty much any pro athlete, because first of all, you start off with confidence. That's essential for any professional athlete, and that doesn't fall into mental health per se, but confidence is a big part of it. But if you struggle with mental health, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if your emotions are fluctuating, then it's so hard to have confidence, and then it's even harder for you to play and do your job. And then again, because you're doing bad or you're not playing well because you have low confidence, you play bad, you get more pressure on you, your confidence drops even more. So it's a really bad cycle. So for people like them, okay, whatever they do is viewed by thousands, millions, or even of people there. And at the end of the day, the people they feel like they have to deal with it are maybe just a handful, like the people who they can go to talk to. Because especially when you're like a footballer or like a really famous athlete, you can have a million people coming to be your friend, but they only want that connection because of who you are in the sport or your popularity. So those are not connections that you can help to like help yourself mentally. When they're not people who you can count on per se. They are looking to use you. They're not looking to help you. So especially pro athletes, they can feel quite lonely despite being in the view of so many, despite belonging to a club, despite belonging to a team. Especially when nowadays players get booed and a lot of hate from their own fans, it might feel like the fans that are supposed to love them don't even appreciate the hard work that they put in. So all these factors uh, pile up on players, and eventually, like it causes them to either just their careers then it never gets to where it should go, or they drop out of sport or worse. And I think there are quite a few examples of players who at a young age showed amazing promise, but they never really capitalized on it. And while some of that is to do with, you can say, like their attitude, certain their attitude, there's also a lot, like a large group of players who quite it's quite commonly known that they suffered from either anxiety or depression, and they were unable to put in their best, or they were unable to meet up the expectations expected of them. So Wesley,
Yeah.
yeah. So you know Bojan, right, from Barcelona?
Yeah, I was actually, that was my only topic for today, talk about Bojan. Yeah.
So since you're from Barcelona, we're going to give you the not Barcelona fan. You can have the flow on this and just bring everyone up to
Yeah.
speed a bit about Bojan and like background and what happened and where he is now. Whatever you go for.
So for I think in 2009 he was promoted, and he just came out of the La Masia scoring I think 900 goals or something. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you like perform really well in the La Masia, like everyone says that you're going to be the next Messi. It's like bound to happen. And he came into like the first team, and then he scored a couple of goals even in the Champions League, and like there were signs.
As I remember, he became the youngest scorer of Barcelona, right?
In the Champions League, I think, yeah.
He broke a record and that Messi had earlier made, I think.
Was that I'm not sure whether that was the following season or the season he debuted. I'm not too sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I think 2010 also he was pretty decent, but then he got injured by 11 and he was again demoted to the reserves. But he did speak out, I think, in 2018 about how the expectation of everyone thinking he's like the next Messi was on his shoulders every time he went onto the field. And no one really asked him like just spoke to him about his like how he felt and stuff, like to get his mental health in place, because he said that he always felt quite lonely in the club and that affected him a lot. And then obviously our board was really bad at keeping young talent even back then, so he was shipped off to I think
Roma
first or Milan?
Roma before Milan.
Okay.
Roma for 12 million, and then he went to Milan.
Yeah, but then either way, in both teams, he didn't really play much. I think he was again in the subs because I think they had better players than him at that point. But in 2015, though, when he went to Stoke, who was the manager? 2015?
Mark Hughes.
Yes. Was it Marcus 2015?
Yeah.
I think he's a very good players coach, because 2015 when Bojan was moved to the middle, like he was insane. What was it? He scored like 11 goals and 3 assists or something in the Premier League, and he was crazy, man. And then after that, the next season again, like I think he was all right. And did Marcus leave in 2016, or was there a new manager appointed? I
think he
vaguely
was there
remember.
till 16 or 17.
Yeah, I vaguely remember Arnautovic coming around this time, and then
Yeah.
Bojan again got kicked into the reserves, and then after that he didn't play. No, he got injured. I think he got injured. No, he moved to Mainz in 2018. Yeah.
So from Barcelona, he moved to Roma, and then to Milan, and then 2013, 2014, he was in Barcelona again. So,
Yeah, on loan.
but he didn't make any appearances.
Yeah, he was in the.
He showed some promise again at Stoke, where he scored 15 goals in 74 appearances. But he also, within that period, 2014 to 2019, he was at Stoke, but he was loaned out in 2017 to Mainz, and he scored
now
one
he's in
goal in
MLS.
7 appearances. And then again to Alaves, where he scored 0 goals in 13 appearances.
Yeah, he was barely played, right?
Currently, he's in Montreal
in MLS.
and he's got 3 goals in 8 appearances.
Yeah, but I think I read an article like about him coming out where he was just like the whole burden about Messi being the next Messi really put him down, because obviously when you go to the field the fans expect so much from you, like any player, right? But then when you come from Barcelona, like when you have the Messi label like floating over your head, it's like immense pressure every time you go in the field. Like you mess up, it's just the fans are just like, wait, that's not Messi, and like it just the players' mentality just keeps deteriorating because of that. So yeah, that's my example. And like right now, I don't think he's ever going to come back to the spotlight. I thought maybe in Stoke that it was like the same thing again because he showed promise.
Hope at Stoke, where you saw like a shadow of what he was, but then even then it didn't go too far.
Yeah, because even in Stoke, like he was playing, I think maybe CF or Chem, I'm not too sure. But like even when he was playing through the middle, like he was much better than playing striker like he was in Barcelona. But yeah, like I actually preferred him in Stoke, like the way he played, than when he was in Barcelona, because he felt like a complete player. But that was, I think, mainly due to Mark Hughes, because he's a very good players coach. But again, I think there was a loss of communication or whatever, and then he was back in the same dump he was before. And I don't think his career is going to come up.
Stoke Alona, because he did bring in a lot of La Masia graduates, and also the players that he did bring in were very technically gifted during their youth ages. For example, Ibrahim Afellay was there. Shaqiri also, he was managed to bring him in.
He played.
Afellay was playing. So Afellay was first 11. Bojan was playing.
And Muniesa.
And then he had
Muniesa was there,
and he had Bruno Martins in defense. So he had quite a lot of technically gifted players in that team. So maybe because of that, Bojan was able
to shine.
So Delafeu also did speak out about the pressure that comes along with being a La Masia graduate. And he had been quoted saying he prefers being in the 17th place Watford than in the Barca team at the moment.
Yeah.
So maybe the pressure that they do get is from a young age, and it kind of drills into them, not instantly but over years of playing. Because even I think a majority of that comes from the name, either the name or the price tag that comes with a player when they play for a club. So yeah, that's my outlook on what happened to Bojan.
And also the fact that now that football is no longer just a sport; it's much more than a sport. It's more commercialized, and it's basically a business right now. And the fact that these players that were coming from these academies, they are used as pawns by their agents and people close to them. They're merely viewed as a product, and they're just trying to get who's trying to get the most amount of benefits. Is it the agent or is it the club by selling this individual? So I think the fact that these players aren't aware that the game has transcended to much more than a game right now, and these players aren't just footballers. They're not just playing football. every kick, every stat that comes out, translate it into the value of the player, which in result translates to their transfer price. So it's the fact that it's transcended to much more than a sport as definitely as a contribution to their mental awareness, mental health as well.
And I also think that expectations are also a big part, right?
Yeah.
We expect people to be like Messi, but those
Yeah.
once in a generation type of players. I don't know if you guys have watched the Michael Jordan documentary which came out recently, right? The
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't watched it. I heard it's amazing though.
If you guys have time, watch it and see the level of competitiveness that Michael Jordan
Yeah.
exhibits. It's out of this world. It's something that you will never see, right? And the media portrayed him like a what you call like a selfish person who would only care about himself. You know?
A dictator almost on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
was a bit.
Yeah. And players who played with him were they had to play at his level, or else he would hold them at practice. He'd even punch players in practice if they
Yeah.
didn't stay, go up to his level. So like
Yeah.
that, I think expectations on a player is not realistic when they're labeled as the next Messi or the next Ronaldo, because not everyone can handle it, right? You know that's what separates the great ones from the good ones. And Boyan might have had these traits of a great player, but at the end of the day, he couldn't handle the pressure of playing for a big club and living up to the Messi name, right? So I think the expectation is also a massive part, like not to put so much on these young players.
Yeah, I
And
suppose.
also in terms of the support system as well. Like if you take Ronaldo, he came to Manchester United from Lisbon. He hardly knew English. The fact that Sir Alex Ferguson was there in Manchester United, and for me personally, although I support Liverpool, I've always had that respect towards Sir Alex Ferguson because he is one of the greats. Like he is a gift for the sport. He promotes healthy competition. Like it's ruthless competition, but he also brings out the best in people. And like if you want to find out more about Sir Alex Ferguson, maybe try reading. He has 2 autobiographies.
Yeah.
Especially the one I finished recently, the one called Leading. It's very much into how you can apply the management lessons that football teaches into various aspects of their life, business, education, even personal life. Coming back to the topic, so the fact that someone like Sir Alex Ferguson was there to guide Ronaldo through that phase, that's what helped him get through. But some players who like fall into the trap may not have that guidance, may not have that father figure who looks out for the betterment of the player. So hence they fall in the trap of money. The agents are very cunning, and then they fall in the trap. Even in the biography of Leading, Sir Alex Ferguson hates agents. He says the agents are like a roadblock for me to communicate with the players. Like he doesn't like, especially Pogba's agent.
Mino.
Who's Pogba?
Mino Raiola.
Yeah, he hates
Don't
Mino
talk about him, bro.
Yeah.
But to add to Leon's point, just a small point, Jim. Yeah. Taking Ronaldo's route with Lisbon and Ferguson's role in that, Ronaldo lost his dad in that same time. Yeah.
I was going to come to that point.
Yeah, taking that same example, Adriano also lost his dad during a period when he was playing for Inter Milan, and Zanetti to this day tells not bringing back Adriano from depression was his greatest failure. So I think Ferguson played a bigger role than a lot of us could comprehend.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to tie this up a bit, players like Bojan, you can always argue what if they had a manager like Ferguson, because it's not like Bojan was a arrogant player. He was just a very big player. He had major confidence issues, and he was He had a lot of anxiety. And Ronaldo is openly a person who has said that he used to cry after games and he loses. He used to not be able to stand losing. He used to get upset. Okay, but the thing with Ronaldo is he had that drive. He had people who drove him to channel that and get better. But not every player has that. So they, such as Bojan, and especially a lot of young players when they come from club with a prestigious name or with a player that's like Messi or Ronaldo, everyone expects them to be that, and everyone forgets that they're just some 17-year-old kid. Like if you had a 17-year-old brother or something, okay, and he tells you something, or he tries to give you advice, you're not going to you're not going to think of him as someone who is fully mature. If he does something stupid or like something that's not that's childish, you still get it. You're like, he's still not a grown up. But when these 17-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids come out from academies, we expect them to be replicating one of the greatest players of all time. And I don't know why we do that, okay? Because it's never ever going to happen. You because I don't think Messi can replicate Messi. I don't think Ronaldo can replicate Ronaldo. It is so hard, and yet we do that. So that's one thing where the expectation is just so high, and young players need to be carefully like nurtured and taken care of. And that's how and taught how to build confidence, how to deal with the anxiety as when we look at depression as such. Adil brought up a good example that you actually think about. Adriano in Inter Milan, okay, he was considered phenomenal. There are people who have him, been quoted saying that he was expected to surpass Ronaldo, as in Ronaldo 9, Ronaldo Dilemma. Okay, like he was so good, and then his father died, and he just plummeted. Like he was never ever the same. Like, and you mentioned Zanetti saying that his greatest regret was that he never pulled him from that. So we can see clearly in instances like that,
Yeah.
there were a lot of people. There was somebody he had someone for, and it clearly wasn't enough. So when it comes to instances like depression, like mental illness, it's clear to see that having someone there for you, even though it does help, it's not enough. And clubs uh, should provide like maybe another department, maybe like psychologists who are there to evaluate their players and to make sure that mentally that they are at a good level in a good state. Because negative mental health is often linked with negative behavior or self-destructive behavior, and we see players who like go out and party or get caught in scandal after scandal, or they just ruin their careers over drinking or smoking or affairs, or like just issues that could probably be avoided if they had the right medical help. Sometimes I'm not saying all players who get in scandals are like that, but I'm saying a lot of people when they are say a normal person on road, he gets say a guy gets into a breakup, okay. A lot of guys who get into the breakup go get drunk, go do stupid things. They pass out in public. They do. I mean, everybody knows it. We have friends who've done it. We've seen people who do it. Okay, they cry, get drunk, cry in public. Okay, you look at it and you be like, okay, probably broke up, and you look away. You're not going to remember that the next day. You're not going to remember that in 5 minutes. But if another player, okay, if a player does that or does that same behavior, then it's going to follow them forever. Like players are not allowed to make mistakes. Okay, and if you're a player suffering with a major, like a tragic issue that's happened to you, a tragic event like uh, a family member dying or a death of someone close or just something traumatic, and you don't get that privacy, you don't get the support, you don't get what you need. It's actually amazing that there aren't more people who are openly like just ruining their life, like players who are careers. So, and as far as I know, clubs don't have that, and football is only recently waking up to many other issues such as racism and just other issues along the same topics. So I think this is another issue that clubs really need to look into, and from the youth level, they need to be providing emotional support to their players because there are a lot of coaches who are not about the players; they are more about results, and that is not going to help players individually. So clubs or coaches all need to be trained in uh, dealing with people's mental health and their players' mental health.
I actually have a small point to convey.
But
Yeah.
Someone brought up families playing a big part in like kids, right?
yeah,
The youth levels.
Yeah.
I actually have a really good point. Like right now in Barcelona, obviously Messi's getting old, so it's absolutely really bad for the Masia players to graduate and go to the team. But I have a good example of family playing a big part with Fatih. He's like his dad has been immense in his career. For example, like he graduated from the juvenile A and was promoted into the first team immediately. And like any player at that stage would crumble because you're like 16 and you're like thrown straight into the first team. And he played immediately when he was in. And like for the past year, he's playing like he's 23, 24. Like every big game he started, he was just acting like he was mentally great. And obviously, every paper started printing next Messi, next Messi. Can he carry Messi's burden and all of that? Even though he's a completely different player, but his father openly came out and was just like, I don't let anything anything that's said in the tabloids or whatever get into my son's head, and like I will always be there to support him. And I think every club like who like has a very good youth system should implement bring in, like if they take players from abroad like kids, they should implement bring in their parents too, because I think it would help their careers grow. Because if you come as like a teenager when you're like 11 or 10 from another country and you don't have your family and you're alone, like especially in this day and age, like you can't cope with all the pressure that you have in your shoulders. So yeah, that's just one point I bring about families playing a big point.
I think that's true because players were made it to the next level. For example, Pogba, right? He came to Man United when he was 12.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so like that, like you said, bringing in their parents with the mental health. Pogba, when he came to Man United, very young, but his mom traveled with him from France, right? So that helped him a lot, right? Like you said, players moving to another country, if their parents follow suit and have that foundation, that's for a kid. Yeah, rather than just send them off to another club without anyone. I think that also helps. Like very, and like I said, clubs should make it a point that if they are bringing new players from other countries,
they should bring
also
their parents.
Yeah, definitely. It's a start. It's a start that they can look into.
But to add to that point, Shaman, to add to that point, you could take two examples actually. Gabriel Jesus and Moiskin, both around the same age. Jesus' mom still takes care of his financials. Who thinks he shouldn't. While taking Moiskin, he moved at a young age from Juventus, where he was budding, to Everton for around 30 million. So his mom followed suit as well. But he hasn't been able to find the right form yet. And there are reports saying that he might move back to Italy. But I guess it's a a unison of the club, parents, and the support of maybe friends or other players that play a part in
Yeah.
kind of making a player take the step from just another teenager to a budding footballer.
I was going to say that, so like you said, like we we as humans tend to like, want repetition. We look at stuff which hadn't happened before, and we want that to repeat. Like you said, like
Yeah.
the high expectations of players, we want that to repeat, right? But we have to understand something that not everyone's the same. Yeah, not like Arya said that Jesus and what's the
Moise.
other
Keen.
player's name?
Keen. Moise
Keen,
Keen.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like we can't compare both of them because they may have
Yeah.
completely different way of life, base of life.
Yeah.
Everything is different. What we tend to do is we tend to generalize a lot, and that's false, right? We
Yeah.
can't generalize footballers. Yeah, like all four of us are different in this conversation, right? So when we
Yeah.
generalize footballer, we tend to put them in one jar and we tend to pick them out, saying that they're the same. I think that's where we should stop. But it's very hard because the media is not like that. The media is the one which drives the generalization, right? We can't stop that. That's something we should go on. But we can do certain things to like uh, decrease those factors and effects on players. One thing is bringing parents. Another important thing is mental health directly relates to being brought up in a very, um, the friendly family environment directly
Yeah.
relates to right depression, anything because the way you grew up affects no matter what you say, what you are today by the way you grew up. Yes?
Yeah.
And like Ronaldo lost his dad. That was his driving force. He may have had Ferguson as his guidance, but Ronaldo had the willpower that we have seen players, right? And if you look at Messi, he was diagnosed with hormone Down syndrome. Deficiency in hormone syndrome, right? That he couldn't.
Growth
Go.
hormone.
Go tall.
People have setbacks in life. It's like Boyan, they people who don't have any kind of setback in life that also can affect the way you perform in the future, right? So in his case, he didn't have anything made to drive him. He just had experience. That's so. I guess it different scenarios works in different ways. So we shouldn't generalize anything. We should take every case as an individual case and treat it as such. That's my point.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
also,
Uh, yeah,
just
bro.
one more thing to add on to what I've spoken about is one factor which we really don't emphasize or which we don't really criticize in terms of it affecting the mental health state of these players is the use of social media. So social media is so powerful nowadays that it spreads like hate can spread like a virus so fast in social media, and it comes down to these players how they use social media and how much of the attention and how much of their lifestyle is like instilled in the social media, which can contribute again to their mental health state as well. Because the more you are consumed or more you are like installed in the whole the digital space and trying to promote your lifestyle and then trying to get like trying to get approval of your lifestyle from your fans, from the people, like if you're trying to show off your lifestyle and if you're trying to get so many likes or trying to fit in with other players, other star players, you can tend to get some hatred towards it. And it's again comes down to the maturity of these players, how they take that hate which is there in social media. I'm not saying that everyone is like giving into it, like especially people like Messi, Ronaldo, Salah. Like most of them have so much of hate in social media as well. Like people are like criticizing them on a daily basis, but they are not like programmed so much to take it to their head. They are only focused on their performance. That's why I admire Zlatan because I mean, although he portrays himself as like this arrogant, this someone with an attitude, like in one of his interviews, he said like he's not seeking attention. Like there are so many players out there who are seeking attention, But for him, attention is not his primary focus, because take attention off, like you're focusing so much of your lifestyle, so much on luxury cars, luxury like houses. But if you don't perform in football, you are nobody. So I think players, the support system should prioritize what is really important. That is the development of them in their game, and then surrounding themselves with the right managers, with the right coach, with the right state or the environment to have to go ahead with the proper family. Then I think you can succeed forward in the game, and that's what players like Ronaldo. I mean, he's always super close with his family like that. Whenever he goes to an award show, he has his family. Like, if you take the journey of Ronaldo in football, only in the time when he was in the Lisbon Academy, he was away from his mother, and he always says that that was the most intense moment in his life. He used to cry every single day, but he doesn't regret it, because that pain which he got in the early part of the game really molded him up to all the challenges that he faced, all the difficulties that he had to go through, like towards his peak and prime, like still in his prime. So it all comes down to that factor, like how much you're consumed in social media and how much you give into the attention. I mean, if you give into the attention game, like you are ultimately trying to, uh, you're just trying to get yourself out of the game in the long run. And it's really important to surround yourself with the right managers, support staff, and the family. The family background really needs to be close, because sports business, like if you get to a stardom state, as I said in the initial part of this podcast, it gets super lonely. So what you should not be, I mean, what you should not do to yourself, or what you should not be, is lonely. So that is where the family, the support staff comes in, and they kind of, it's a team game at the end of the day. It's not as much as we say a player is individual. There are so many factors which contributes to their success. It can't be only their performance. Strongly, I mean, there has to be a strong support system for them to thrive.
Because the next topic would be players who do not necessarily belong to an academy or club. Their contract has been terminated, or they're looking to be signed, or players with a long-term injury, or with consistent injuries that cause them to be basically free agents. Uh, in the event of that, what do you guys feel should be done for those players? How can their mental health be looked after when they don't necessarily
Yeah.
belong to a club or an academy, and or if they're shifting around between clubs and academies?
So to actually answer that, that was a thought I had before but this all stems with when Leon said football is not commercialized. And the first example I can think about for a player who's sustained multiple injuries would be Jack Wilshere for me, because he did have a lot of highs. Few being the game against Barcelona, where he was hailed and compared to Iniesta and Xavi. But right now he's being played for West Ham. The problem arises is when how valuable you are to the club. Like
Yeah.
maybe Jack Wilshere was valuable to Arsenal for the first maybe 5-6 years. Then it starts to question whether the investment that they're putting into one single player is worthwhile in comparison to the other 23 players in the squad. So in that case, because of the commercialization and the profits that clubs are now going for, it kind of conflicts interests between the safety of players and the profiting of a club that could maybe excel the club in the future to better investments in the future as well. But when it comes to actually protecting players who are without a club, the best that could be done is, personally, I feel would be almost like a what do you call like the alcohol addiction they have. And actually, the first to 11 steps are not what helps a person defeat the addiction, but it's actually the 12th step, which is helping someone else defeat the addiction that helps them get over it. So, in saying that, I think the best way a player can overcome such anxieties and mental health is to get help from other players who have gone through it and overcome it. And by doing so, they can help someone else who's going through it. So that's
Yeah.
my point.
So to relate to that, so in in the NBA, right? There's a players union, right? So the players union NBA actually looks after even their former players. There was a recent case where one of the former players was actually homeless.
I think I saw something like this.
Yeah. So actually, Chris Paul is the head of the players union right now in the NBA. They actually reached out and they actually helped him get a job to stabilize him. So I was wondering, are there any kind of players union in the English game? Like, I'm not sure whether there is, or in any football around the world. It's a game. Yeah. So are there any?
I remember like they did a piece where they got like a lot of footballers, like free agents or something, to like speak out on how their experiences are or something. There are there are a lot of media companies that like actually cover this, like the whole free agent thing. Like people who are free agents, they like talk about it, and they say that the struggles that they're going through, through multiple injuries, keeping themselves fit, because obviously when you have to keep yourself, when you're without a club and all that, you have to pay for like your own expenses and stuff to keep yourself fit, and obviously you become fit like a football player, and the diet and all that, it's really expensive. Also, when you stop earning, another thing. And at the Player Tribune, they covered something like this. I forgot who the free agent was. I think it might have been Alex Song back in the day, because there was a point when another thing I wanted to say is like there's a point, like some teams have really good relationships with their past clubs, so they usually go back to those clubs to train because those clubs have good relationships with them. Like example, Alex Song did with Arsenal when he was a free agent.
Yeah, so I think players related to injuries, like Wesley said, clubs looking after them. But in the meantime, normally for players who have not had much of an impact for a club and they move on, clubs don't take it, like Adil said, so where those players fall in, like the majority of them are like that, people who don't have a massive impact, they move on and they might fall into trouble. Yeah, so when it comes to that, like I get.
And even players, like we're only looking at players who are in the Premier League. League 1, League 2 players don't earn as much as Premier League players. So
exactly. And I think if you look at
go ahead.
Like I think if you look at stats as League 1, League 2, League 3, they have the highest number of people who are like if you look at cases of like mental health issues, from what I read, League 1, League 2, League 3, there are people are coming out. People are actually approaching the FA to provide them support. So yeah.
And another thing is, once you're in football for most of your life, what happens when you don't have a plan B to fall on to? And that's where I feel if there is no a players association, football could really use one. Not just with mental health, but with racism and other factors that come into play.
Anything, yes, that's true. Definitely.
Yeah.
So James, over to you.
If you could introduce one policy or maybe company or something that benefits players' mental health and is there for players, what would it be? Pretty much what would it be? How would you improve mental health for footballers? Shaman, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think for me, the first thing which comes to mind is a players' tribune or a players' union, a strong one at that, where they can set up a foundation for people who have injuries or people who have mental health to go to the players' union, because most of them aren't comfortable going to the clubs. It's better to talk to a professional footballer who could sometimes share the same situation as you, right? So I think a strong players' tribune and a players' union would be a massive help, especially in football. since as far as I'm concerned, there isn't a massive one in England. As for example, let's say the NBA has a big one, right? Something like that. We could replicate a similar situation when it comes to football.
Yeah. Wesley, would you like to go next?
Wesley?
Actually, mine's a very small point. I feel like every club, like in every league, basically, every club should have like a section that they should devote to just therapists solely. And if possible, like those therapists could consult like, past players, because obviously you can't make past players therapists because it's a different field, right?
Yeah.
But if these therapists have access to like past players, they could like, talk to them and see how they dealt with their problems and stuff. And whatever new players come in, anyone who has like mental problems or like anything to do with stress or anything, they can consult these therapists and they can tell about how this player went through this, and they can like try and support their cause and stuff like that. So I think clubs should really invest on like trying to, stop this, like, or at least reduce the whole mental health problem, and at least like take over the barrier where players don't have anyone to talk to. At least if each club has like a small portion of people who are just therapists who can just, after a match, if something's bothering them, they can just go talk to them, right? It's something like, something like our universities, they have a small section where students, if they're stressed, they can go and talk to therapists. So like something similar to that.
Adit, do you have anything to add?
My point would be to really focus on getting rid of the toxic fans in the stadium. Because, for example, a player with a high price tag comes into the team, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with it, and sometimes their own fans are the root of the problem. And by taking care of really protecting the players through what would the word be? Either ban or really tax the fans that cause racial slurs,
Yeah. I
chants
think
that aren't chants that are against the players.
yeah.
I
I
feel like
think
that might curb a lot of the problems that kind of stem.
yeah. Sorry, you.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right. Things like racism and say negative chance, that those can definitely be controlled by the club to an extent. I mean, racist chants, chants that are anti-groups or anti, like, purely offensive, it can be monitored. But I also think fans should be able to criticize players as well.
Yeah.
So what to avoid it crossing the line, I think the clubs could provide social media campaigns, sort of like getting to know the players, so that these players are just not, you know, people you see on a screen. You get to know them more. You get to this thing. So the more people feel like they relate with them, the more people are going to defend them. So the less likely somebody is going to be able to just criticize some 16-year-old kid who made a mistake. You're going to understand and be like, okay, this kid is our future. He might have messed up now, but he has 10, 15 years to be our star. They won't just put fire pressure on and make it very understanding for them. Yeah, so I think that makes a bit of sense, and I think that's something that clubs can definitely do and should do as well. And another point to bring up would be that when I did my coaching license, there was a section under, so it was grassroots level coaching. So there was a section where they mentioned how to deal with children and the psychology of dealing with children. So I think education on the coaches part is very important as well, because they will be people interacting with them. So I think it should be a given that all coaches are very good at player management and understanding players. So whereas they could have a different style of coaching, they also need to be able to get the best out of their players despite the players' personality. So I think all coaches should be educated on how to uh, coach and upbring youth players so that once they reach a mature age, they have already grown up and they know how to deal with themselves, how to deal with their emotions without learning it and being thrown into the deep end when they get signed by a big club or when they make pro.
Mm.
So yeah, guys, I think that's it for today. And does anyone else have anything to add?
I guess that's it.
So
So yeah, guys, that's it for today. And coming up soon, and actually in like 2 hours time, is Bundesliga, and you can catch the action on Ceylon Pass. Jagged, we don't stream, but
Oh, free stream, illegal.
don't stream, but maybe like yeah, that's it. Catch you guys next.
all right.
Yeah, see you boys. Take care, folks.
You, man.
Till then. See you.
Peace,
Bye.
guys.